All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to the hearing today. We appreciate everyone being willing to come and share your input about the Wildlife Management Program. Just to introduce myself, I'm Interim Captain Chris Helmick of the Fargo Police Department, and I'll be moderating the hearing today. First of all, I want to apologize for the short notice. I know a lot of people that emailed ahead of time weren't able to make it today because of work schedules or what have you, and it wasn't ideal, but what we're trying to do is get things done before the next city commission meeting, so we're kind of on a tight timeline, but we still wanted to try and set something up later in the day to give people hopefully an opportunity to come and share their thoughts on this program. So for those who were able to make it, I really appreciate it, and we'll give you a chance here to speak. So what I'd like to do is just give a little bit, just a short presentation on the police department's standpoint on this program, and then we'll open up the mics for the folks that registered to speak today. And I'll go through some of those ground rules when we get to that point. But what we're going to do is all the input that's given either today or that was sent to us by email, we'll compile all that information and prepare a packet for the city commissioners, and the commissioners will review that and make a final decision about the future of the program. So your input is going to be part of that overall package. And the plan that we're shooting for is to have this ready for the city commission this coming Monday on June 28th. So that's, again, why we have the short timeline on this. So with that, we'll get started with the short presentation, and then, like I said, we'll open up the mic for the people who registered to speak today. To get started, the Wildlife Management Program started here in Fargo back in 2006, and so it's been running for about 15 years. Obviously, it was set up at the time because of complaints about deer population in the city, and really the only change that's happened to the program in that period of time is turkey hunting was added back in 2013, and in addition, they allowed electronic registration. But other than that, the program has remained fairly steady. Should be noted that over the course of the existence of the program, the city's population has grown at about 27,000 people. 2005, we had 98,000, and in 2020, the census figures show about 125,000 folks living here in Fargo. Each year in this program, we have roughly 45 participants, and that number has been fairly steady for the last several years. Lieutenant Matt Sanders, who I know a lot of you have interacted with in the past, who's managed this program, put together some statistics about some of the harvest rates and other information that we thought would be of interest during this presentation. Over the course of the last 15 years, we've harvested about 352 deer. We've only harvested about 9 turkeys. We've had 45 deer that were hit but not recovered. And of concern is that we've had 144 archery shots that were missed. But what we don't know is whether or not those arrows were recovered after the miss. Just to lay out some of the concerns that we have, as the police department, have about the program. The number one concern that we have is public safety. Obviously, with the growth in population and development in the city, especially on the south side, we have concerns that increasing density is raising the likelihood of an accident that could happen with this program. And even some of the emails that were sent to me, some of the hunters even talked about having interactions with folks out in the wooded areas or out on the trails in those particular zones. And so it does happen. Also, along that same line is the increased traffic or foot traffic that we're seeing on the recreational trails in the city and the expansion of those trails. And the more that people are getting out and using those, we feel that there's an increased likelihood of something happening. We have had at least one occurrence where a lost arrow was found by a resident. This same individual claimed to have found other arrows at other times, but the only one that we really have documented is the one instance that was investigated by the police department. I believe that was back in 2013. So really our viewpoint on this is, even though we haven't had any serious incidents, we feel that the growth in population is increasing the likelihood of something happening, and we really don't want to wait until an accident actually happens to take action on this program. The secondary concern that we have as a police department is the resources required to manage it. And roughly every year, it takes about 40 to 80 hours of Lieutenant Sanders' time to manage this program, which salary-wise isn't a lot, but we do have an increasing demand for resources in the department with increasing calls for service and increasing investigative load. Lieutenant Sanders right now is part of our criminal investigations team. He actually oversees that unit, so his time is pretty valuable. And so for him to take time out of that management does have an effect on the overall operation of the department. A third concern that we have is part of the program is we have certain zones that are actually outside of city limits. There are Fargo Park extraterritorial areas, and they're part of the program, but the difficulty that we have there is we don't have any enforcement of criminal ordinances in those particular areas. We do have some administrative authority, so if people violate the rules of the program, we can take action on that, but those are areas that are tending to grow at a rapid pace. We have Orchard Park as part of that. I'll show you a map here shortly, and we have some concerns about being able to properly enforce any ordinance violations that would normally occur. We could enforce within the city limits, but out in those areas, we're not able to do that. So that does present some difficulty for us. Complaints and concerns we've had over the last 15 years. Admittedly, there haven't been a lot. We've had some complaints of deer that might have been harvested or found to be out in the open area of a park. Like I mentioned before, we had one resident who claimed that her son found an arrow and it stuck to his shoe as he was walking through the home park area. We actually did do a police report of that and sent it to the city prosecutor, but it was found that the hunter had followed the rules of the program and there was no criminal intent, so there was no prosecution on that. We've had calls about putting up additional signs, which has happened. We've also had reports of hunter possibly using a ground blind, rather than being up in a tree stand. That was investigated, but really didn't find any evidence of that, or we couldn't identify who that person might be. We also had some reports of illegal baiting, but Lieutenant Sanders found that the amount of bait that was used was within city ordinance, so there was no violation. Just to kind of walk through the different zones that we have, just to kind of put some of this in perspective as far as where these hunts take place. And I'm sure a lot of you already know this, but for the sake of the public who isn't as familiar with the program, this is the North Zone, Region 1. And as you'll see, a lot of the areas are right along the river, and they're also adjacent to a lot of residential areas. And there again, our concern is that something could possibly happen with the folks that are living in those particular neighborhoods. This is the other portion of the North Zone. You'll note that there's a bike and rec trail that's located down by Oxbow Park, which is just south of the VA hospital. And that, as you can clearly see from the map, goes directly through the hunting zone that, again, is frequently used by bicyclists or other pedestrians. This is Region 2, which is on the south side. It stretches from near Riverside Cemetery and down by River Drive and the Eagles Kindergarten Center. There again, most of these are along the river. I know there's been a lot of flood buyouts in this area and such, but there's still a lot of residential areas in those zones. And again, a continuation of the South District. And then these are two of the zones that I was talking about before that are technically Fargo Park property, and they're managed as part of this program, but they're outside of the city limits so that our officers are not able to take any enforcement action on criminal offenses in those areas. And Orchard Park is one that I mentioned, but also down the Forest River Drive area. And then there's two additional area down at Hillside Drive. And as you'll note here, you don't know if you can really see it on the map, but there is a trail that goes right through that particular area. So again, we'd have concerns about pedestrian traffic going through the hunting zone. So That's really about the only information I want to present today. So I want to talk a little bit about the open forum. There are a couple of questions that we'd like the attendees and the folks that are speaking today to try to give us input on, and some of this was directed by the mayor. First question at hand is, considering public safety, do you still support the wildlife management program? And the second question is, if the program was to be continued by the City Commission, do you have any input on who you think might be able to manage it, to take that burden off police resources? And we're certainly open to any ideas along that line. So some of the ground rules for public comment. Again, the folks that wanted to speak registered ahead of time. We have 2 virtual attendees, and then we have 11 that are going to speak in person. What I'll do is I will call off each of those names one at a time, and we'll have the speakers approach the left podium. And when you do, before you make your comments, please state your name for the record. Even though I'm calling it out, just want to confirm that we have the right person up there. Excuse me. Also, at this point, I'm not going to take questions, and I'm not going to provide any rebuttals to anything that's said during the open comments. This is the public's opportunity to voice their opinions about this program, and we don't want this to turn into a debate. It's not the police department's decision as to what's going to happen with this. It's up to the City Commission, but we simply want to get your input and have that documented so that we can provide that to the Commission. And also, like I mentioned, the Commission will meet next Monday, and folks can certainly show up there and register for public comment as well, or email the commissioners ahead of time, whatever you'd like to do, call the commissioners. That is certainly within your rights to do that. So, like I said, I don't want to get into answering questions or getting into a debate with anyone. I know there's going to be a lot of passion in this room. I appreciate that. And that's why we're here, is to get your input. We also ask that you try and stay within the 2.5-minute time limit if you can, just for the sake of everybody's time. Everybody's time is valuable, so we want to make sure that we keep things moving along and no one takes control of the meeting. If you want, you can certainly provide additional comments to me by email. I'll accept those through midnight tonight, and all of those comments will be included in the packet for the City Commission. And if you do have any questions or what have you, you can certainly send those to me as well, and I'll do the best I can to respond to those. Okay. And then just last thing that, like I mentioned, this issue we're planning on having on the City Commission agenda this coming Monday. The City Commission meeting will happen at 5 o'clock here in this room. So anyone who wants to attend and see or provide comments at that point, or see what the discussion is by the Commission, you can certainly do that as well. All right, back up here. All right, so with that, we'll get ready, or we'll get started with our public comment. The first person that has registered to speak is joining us virtually, and we will start off with David Snyder. Oh, okay. So we'll move on to the in-person speakers first. First on the list is going to be Brent Mitchell. Okay. This one over here, please. Thank you.
Mic on the right?
Yes.
Okay.
Should be active.
Hello, my name is Brent Mitchell, and I thank you for your time and listening, and I want to speak in favor of the program. I am a City of Fargo resident and have taken part in the program for the last 3 years. In each of those 3 years, I have successfully and safely harvested my allotted 2 animals. In that time, I have interacted with a number of people in the populace. I've been on stand and had families come up to me. I've been on stand and have dog walkers come up to me and bicyclists come up to me. It's not a cause for, we're not boogeymen sitting in a tree, we're people. I've had conversations. Frankly, I was very hesitant and worried when I first started the program of talking to people about it. The city has presented the program in a very quiet light. Don't talk too loudly about it, or it's going to get canceled. And I think that's wrong. I think the public needs to know it's there. I think the public needs to know why we're out there, and that we're doing it above board and clearly. The most surprising thing is the public I've talked to outside of the stand have been overwhelmingly in support of it. I've been asked if, can you take more than 2? You talk to people, especially on the north side, the more established neighborhoods, and you can't have landscaping of any green variety. You can't plant a new tree because a deer is going to eat it. They're pests, which is a terrible thing for wildlife to be. They're a resource that needs to be managed just like any other resource or animal within the city. I think the Park District has a large amount of the land that's involved in the program, and the management of that should likely fall underneath there. And from a safety standpoint, you just heard the statistics. Those are anomalies of anomalies. 1 arrow lost. I hate to tell you folks, when I let an arrow go, I know I'm releasing something that's a deadly implement. I also know I'm dropping about $25 at the ground, and I'm not gonna leave that be just because I forgot it. Again, let's talk about it, folks. Let's not try to make this something that we're afraid of discourse on. Let's be above board. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Appreciate it. Next, we have Nick Ackerman. Okay. And the audiovisual people, folks asked if you could face forward when you're speaking because we're on camera. Yes, please.
Okay. So as stated, my name is Nick Ackerman. So again, I'd like to begin by saying thanks for holding this hearing here for us. Participants of this program, I too participate, am very much in favor of it. So as a participant of the program, the past 4 years, I personally don't have enough good things to say about it. Not only is the program wonderful in offering a wonderful offering from the Fargo Park staff to allow for the aid of herd management, but it also provides a service to the Fargo Parks and surrounding residents while also contributing to the state conservation efforts, as a majority of the fees of those special state issue tags is put to maintaining wildlife and land alike throughout the state. Having participated and taken part in the specific training and proficiency testing associated with this program, which is mandated by for all participants, I can tell you that its participants are sportsmen and women who exercise the utmost care and judgment while out in the designated city parks and city-owned property. This program's high standards for participation ensures the absolute minimum amount of risk for both injury or potential for complaints. The statistics that were just shown also probably prove that you would get more complaints from a concert in the city, dare I say. My friends who participate in the program and I have had no negative interactions with other citizens in the park. Often they will talk to us and provide sightings, ask us about the program. And in many cases, some of us have had pleasant notes left in our windshields wishing us good luck. Just a little bit of extra information from this comparing to the state. So on average, since starting the program in Fargo, harvest rates are higher than those of the state, surpassing rates of even record years. In 2017, for instance, a record number of hunters statewide participated in the archery season, 28,481 in total with a 39% success rate. The success rate of those of us participating in the management program in Fargo was 49, and an overall lifetime average of 42%. Is that my time? I'll end.
All right, next we have Brian Zastapel.
Thank you. My name is Brian Zastapel, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the Wildlife Management Program. I'm very familiar with the program, and I've been involved in most years since inception, starting in 2008. From the very early stages, again, just for the background, again, even per the City of Fargo website, the program was stood up based upon the citizen complaints in the Red River corridor, And the Fargo City Commission tasked the police department to identify maybe a potential solution. A committee of the police department, park district, and city attorney, and also North Dakota Game and Fish Department were established to address the deer problem. They came up with the City of Fargo Wildlife Management Program. I'd like to address some of the issues raised during the June 1st commission meeting. As far as for the effectiveness of the archery program as a population management tool, I'd like to comment in just a quick Google search, found numerous communities, including like Bismarck, North Dakota, City of Duluth, Maplewood, Shorewood, Burnsville, and Minnesota that are comparable communities to ours that also have very similar programs. From the biology perspective, we all understand this is a management program. It's not intended to be an eradication program, such as a potential like a sharpshooting program. Understand that the City of Fargo, the deer population here is fluid. The deer move freely between Minnesota and the Fargo, North Dakota side of the river for at least 4 months out of the year across the ice. It was mentioned that potential of a sharpshooting program might be a replacement tool. With that being said, understand that you're not going to eradicate deer just because of the natural movement across the river and so on. So I also contest that the archery program has the ability to distribute the pressure of the deer over a wider area over a longer period of time than any sharpshooting program might do. As far as for the deer numbers killed in the program, I would contest that 352 deer over the life of the program is very big, and also does not take into account the multiplier effect of the deer that would have the potential to reproduce. For anybody who's not familiar, my apologies. Sorry about that. So one quick paragraph here. As far as for potential solutions, I would recommend that the program that this season goes on as is, and I would recommend that a work group be established after the season with the interested parties and have a hunter, potentially a hunter representative involved in that work group. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian. And yeah, just for future reference for the speakers, you'll hear the first beep. That's kind of a warning that your time is coming up, and then you'll hear the beeps continue. So apologize for the confusion on that. Okay. All right. And at some point, your mic will shut off. So you'll know at that point that your time is really up. So it shuts mine off too, it looks like. So. All right. Next, we have Jeffrey Miller.
My name is Jeffrey Miller, and I've participated with the Fargo Management since the inception in 2006. And I guess I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here of what these other gentlemen have said. I'm in full support of the program. One thing that I think in terms of public safety that we have to remember that the threat to public safety for the archery is extremely small, but the threat to public safety for bicyclists or motorists driving and deer running around is probably much more. I've seen a fair amount of deer where I hunt that have sustained vehicle injuries, broken legs, whatnot, that more than likely would be not only deleterious to the animal, but probably to the motorist or the bicyclist that hit the said deer. So I think in terms of public safety, the program is really something that is going to help public safety, and to make sure that the resource is utilized by as many people as possible. The hunters, bicyclists, frisbee golfers, we can all coexist and use the natural resources that we have here. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jeffrey. Next, we have Rob Mounts.
Thank you. Couple things. I was pretty sure that a lot of the safety concerns would be addressed by others, so I won't add my 2 cents, but I echo a lot of what's already been said. One thing on the population comment, where the population of Fargo has gone up, yes, that's obvious. One thing I'll encourage the City Commission and police department to look at is where those people are located. If you look at Google Earth, you can look at historic overhead maps. You'll see that a lot of the development that is along the river is now gone. And the southern region, I'd say roughly half of those areas are former developments where houses used to be, they are no more, and that's the areas that are being hunted. In fact, looking at the map, the only area that has had an increase in housing or development around it is 1A, which is the old seminary development on the north side of Fargo. Now, one thing to consider there too is there's 53 acres between 1A and 1B from the development property line to the river. So there's still a lot of property there. The other thing I'll point out is all the areas combined total roughly 470 acres of area. So there's a huge area to hunt. As far as improvements go, I have a few. One, I think we should expand it. There's the farthest north we go is that seminary property right behind it. If you look at I live on 45th Avenue North in the Riverwood development. We just moved out 6 houses or demolished them next to the river. There's 10 acres there that could be hunted. There's plenty of deer there. I can attest to that. The North Broadway Bridge that just closed down, there's plenty of area there. Trefoil Park, for some reason, that's not available to hunt. And Edgewood Golf Course. There's a lot of time between the point where the golf course closes for the season and to where it's heavily used for cross country if there's enough snow. You should also increase the number of hunters. I think that would also be a good idea. There's plenty of people that want to hunt that can't participate in the program because it is so popular. As far as making improvements, another one I'd have is if you want to make the enforcement cheaper, it'd be pretty easy to have the hunters give the coordinates of their stance to the officers they could go do a check. These are all things that make it a lot cheaper to enforce as well. And one thing I will point out on the sharpshooters, my time's going to go off in 5 seconds here. One of the companies that looked at that does this, they actually have on their website, if managed hunting isn't an option, here are the services we provide. And I think managed hunting in Fargo, it's been a phenomenal success. And I think all the stats that were shown show that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Next, we have Dan Mason. Dan Mason. All right, we'll move on to Terry and Renee Quat. Hope I pronounced that last name. Okay.
Hi, my name is Renee Quast. He decided I'm going to be the speaker. I only have a couple things to say. I 110% support this program. It's our deer for the season because sometimes you don't get a rifle license to shoot in other areas. So when he shoots in this program, that pretty much guarantees us a deer and my 2 kids a deer. So I 100% support this program. The only other thing, my suggestion, and I've heard a couple people say it, is that through the years since he's been doing this, they pick 45 people. I think they should take every year the top 10 harvesters and automatically put them in the program and then pick the other 35. Because in that way, you know that you're gonna get at least so many harvests. And I know that we've talked about this before, there's certain times where people put in for it, but then they never hunt. So out of 45 people, maybe only 32 of them hunt. So you've got that many openings where people aren't even hunting. And I just think that the people that go out there and do it every day and harvest them for the reason of having the meat, which is what we do it for, they should be allowed to be able to do it every year. That's it. That's all I got to say. Thank you, and I love this program.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Next, we have Jacob Skansberg.
I'm Jacob Skansberg. Thank you guys for your time. Pretty much everything I wanted to cover has been covered. One thing in addition that some people ran out of time on the sharpshooting aspect, I'm in support of this program, if that wasn't clear already. But sharpshooting, like the one gentleman mentioned, is a last resort. I I guess the last question on your, the two questions you posed hasn't quite been answered as clearly. A pretty easy way to answer that would be if it is a general consensus to scrap this program, the money that you would then invest in sharpshooting, which is average about $1,000 a deer, you could probably allocate that money elsewhere within the program, cover your 40 to 80 hours of salary for this program. But yeah, I've been a Fargo resident for 4 years, have not been able to even get in the program. I didn't know about it for the first two, so the secrecy of the program as far as keeping it that way so it doesn't raise too many alarms, I guess. But I think there should be a little bit more public knowledge about it, just so everyone's on the same page. I know my neighbors were pretty excited in North Fargo when they found out I was going to try for it. They could finally plant some of their gardens, so thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Next, we have Michael Gravelin.
Hello, my name is Mike Gravelin, and I'm for the program. I guess I won't rehash what a lot of people have already said. I think a lot of good points have been brought up, so I'll just share a couple of my personal experiences. I've participated in the program for 2 years, and I only take 2 deer a year. Could obviously take way more. One thing I do just to help with arrow recovery is I use a nocturnal knock. Maybe that could be something mandatory, because with the nocturnal knock, the arrow will be lit up. So if a person is unable to find their arrow during the daytime, at nighttime, they should be able to find their arrow. That's one thing I do. I personally have seen 20, 30 deer cross the river in one of my evenings I've sat. Multiple times I've seen another 10 deer. I live by Rose Creek Coulee, and I see 10 to 15 deer over there. Obviously, we can't hunt Rose Creek Coulee, but those deer, I'm sure, make it over to the river and so on and so forth. I have had interaction with the public, and all interactions I've had have been positive in support of the program. They're usually quite happy I'm there. But again, I'm only one person, so I can only do so much. But everyone I've talked to has been in support of the program. And I'm in law enforcement, so public safety is of my utmost concern at all times. And I have personally, I've never seen anything or heard anything bad about the program. I talk with Lieutenant Sanders quite a bit about the program, and when I'm out there, I look for possible flaws, and if I see something. And the other thing is, I wouldn't participate in the program if I felt there was issue with public safety, and that's about all. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Michael. Next, we have Christopher Cohen.
Yeah, I'm Christopher Cohen, and I'm a 15-year Fargo resident. I oppose the current wildlife plan involving the killing of deer. My first question is whether the city is covered for all liability regarding culling activity. For example, involving accidents. This morning I left a message with the city attorney's office asking that question, and nobody got back to me. By the way, bow and arrow is one of the cruelest ways to kill an animal or a person. It's so easy to take a misplaced shot and badly injure but not kill them. Either way, an animal struck with an arrow must always be tracked, as they eventually die of hemorrhage or infection if it didn't strike a vital organ. Tremendous suffering is involved. I think most people would choose a skilled firing squad over bow and arrow execution if it were them. You have to get a direct shot into a vital organ for it to be effective. Killing deer doesn't control their populations. Their high reproductive rate will quickly compensate for any deer removed. Each year, enough deer must be killed to significantly reduce the herd, and then continue to kill deer to keep the population from bouncing back. Once the killing starts, deer move into areas off limits to hunters, and once it's over, they move right back into their original territory, and we're back to square one. It's commonly assumed that an organized cull or hunt will make for a sustained reduction in the deer population and reduce the number of deer-human conflicts. Deer are highly prolific, and their high reproductive rate can quickly compensate for declines in their population. When deer numbers are reduced after killing programs, the remaining female deer may respond to greater food abundance by giving birth to twins or triplets. Even normal reproduction is more than sufficient to compensate for a population reduction from killing programs. Fawns also have higher survival rates and earlier onset of sexual maturity. To be successful, a killing program must not only significantly reduce the deer herd, but it must also sustain enough pressure to prevent this bounce back effect, while also preventing deer from surrounding areas from wandering in. All of these requirements pose an insurmountable challenge in most urban and suburban communities. A more effective alternative is a non-lethal deer management plan focused on resolving conflicts with deer, not reducing deer numbers. We can address conflicts through practical, humane, sustainable process that everyone can get behind, such as deer-resistant plantings, repellent, physical barriers, and scare tactics. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Next speaker is Paul Spiro.
My name is Paul Spurl. I'm a volunteer with the North Dakota Bowhunters Association. I've been affiliated with the program since inception, and my job is to, at the training session, safety and ethics. I've been a National Bowhunter Education instructor for over 40 years, North Dakota Game and Fish instructor for over 15, and personally I've bow hunted, which is unbelievable. This will be my 50th season in North Dakota. I want to thank all these people for coming and voicing their opinion, both for and against. It gives us a chance to educate those that are against, and I would just applaud those that spoke for. It, I think, shows that we've done a good job of preparing them, which makes me proud. Our safety record has been perfect, and it will continue to be so. One thing I have learned from this is that ongoing, we can make a point of emphasis on the safety. Currently, hunters are required to be 10 feet up above the ground, and that's to force the arrow down and make it safer, so the arrows tend to stick in the ground rather than skipping off. We've had no issue with arrows. The lost arrows, we've never surveyed. We don't know how many of those 144 misses have been picked up. We could add that to the survey. We could also make that a point of emphasis. Like the gentleman suggested, the lighted knock would enhance the chances of finding those arrows. But the training can be adjusted to make this great program even better. And I think it's a great program that needs to stay in place. It's been effective. It's fulfilled every single aspect of the goals intended from the beginning. And I think going forward, it will just become better and better. And as Fargo grows, our goal every year, and these gentlemen and ladies have done a great job, our goal is to be invisible. And the public is going to be on those paths more and more often, and we will just emphasize that fact that there's going to be more and more people, general public, and we'll just continue our great track record moving forward. So thank you much.
Thank you, Paul. Last call for Dan Mason. Okay. Did we get our virtual? Nobody? Okay. So that is everybody on our list of people that registered to speak. I lost my, oh, there we go. Again, thank you for everyone who came to attend. And as I mentioned earlier, you can certainly still send me emails, and I'll still compile those comments for our final packet for the City Commission through midnight tonight. And again, the City Commission meeting is planned for next Monday at 5 p.m. And that agenda should be published by Friday this week, typically. So if you want to come at that time and make further comment, you certainly are welcome to do that. So again, thank you for your time today. Appreciate everyone coming and giving the input. And we'll see what the commission decides on Monday. Thank you.